We're starting a new play today on Shakesyear. We're starting a new play today on Shakesyear. Sorry, I've been singing to my cats all day. As you can see, they like that. But we are starting a new play today on Shakesyear. We are going to start in on the second Maiden's tragedy, which is interesting because there isn't a character in it either known as or referred to as the second Maiden. The title of this play is almost as interesting as the debate over its authorship, because this play only existed in manuscript form. It wasn't published anywhere that anybody could find. They just found a manuscript, and they're guessing that the manuscript was written about 1611, somewhere in that ballpark. And the cover page, there were 3 different possible names of authors written on it, being Thomas Gough, William Shakespeare, and George Chapman. But as scholars have gone back and examined it for word choice and blah, 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 all this sort of fun stuff, they figured that it was probably actually written by Thomas Middleton. And they also did a bit of a handwriting analysis and determined that most of the play was probably written by Middleton because that appeared to be that handwriting. But since it's a manuscript, there's also like some notes and little extra little pieces of paper shoved in there with potential revisions noted on them. And some of those have handwriting that looks suspiciously like Shakespeare's. So even if this was most likely written by Thomas Middleton, Shakespeare's name was on the cover page, and it's possible that he helped with some of the revisions or gave some guidance, served as an editor, something like that. He probably contributed to it in some form or another. But the other interesting thing about the cover page, there was no title on this play. It was just a play that had some authors on it and then, scribbled notes and then the body of the play. So some people started calling it the second Maiden's tragedy because there was already a play called the Maiden's tragedy, and this one apparently bears some similarities to that one. So they were like, well, maybe it's the Maiden's tragedy part 2, or this is the second play that we have about a Maiden's tragedy. But as some theater companies in later years, it was finally sort of unearthed and published in the mid-1800s, and there have been some companies that have put on productions of this show, and sometimes they update the title because it really doesn't make sense to call it the second Maiden's tragedy if there is no second Maiden in it, or even really a first Maiden in it. So one of the female protagonists is just known as Lady, so some people have called it the Lady's tragedy. One of the principal male characters is just known as the Tyrant King, so some productions have even just called this the Tyrant's tragedy. But in any case, it is a tragedy. Shakespeare might have contributed to it in some form or another. And today we are actually going to get to hear from the Tyrant King in Act 1, Scene 1. So, Act 1, Scene 1, we are in the court of the former king, Gavanius. The Tyrant King has just overthrown him. And I'm imagining just overthrew, probably within about the last 24 hours this has happened. So they're in the court, and the Tyrant King is talking to Gavanius, who is sort of there as a prisoner, but also a lot of his noblemen, a lot of the Tyrant King's noblemen around, including Memphonius and I'm always going to pronounce this one wrong, Sophonarus, and also Helvetius, who I'm probably going to call Helvetica at some point or another. But anyway, he's talking to all of these various people, and he's like, look, see, good things happen. All of your hard work has paid off. I have now overthrown Gavanius. I am king. And Gavanius responds basically by calling the Tyrant King a snake. And the Tyrant King says, there was but one in whom my heart took pleasure amongst women. One in the whole creation, and in her you dared to be my rival. Helvetius, it is thy daughter, happier than a king and far above him, for she kneels to thee, whom we have kneeled to, richer in one smile that came from her than she in all thy blessings. If thou beest proud, thou art to be forgiven. It is no deadly sin in thee. While she lives, high lust is not more natural to youth than that to thee. Be not afraid to die in it. 'Tis but the sin of joy. There is no gladness, but has a pride it lives by. That's the oil that feeds it into flames. Let her be sent for, and honorably attended, as beseems her, that we may make our queen. My lords Memphonius and Sophoronius, take into your care the royal business of my heart. Conduct her with a respect equal with that to us. If more, it shall be pardoned, so still err. You honor us, but ourself honors her. So there's several things going on in this monologue. First of all, almost nothing that we did in the Puritan was in verse, and this is in verse. So it's fun to get some of the clues from the verse and some interesting structural things about it. A lot of his sentences start in the middle of a verse line, which is sort of like I finished my thought, but I'm going to keep saying what I need to say so that nobody else jumps in on top of me, which can give you a little bit of insight into like who he is as a person, that he feels like he always needs to keep talking and that he doesn't want to get cut off. But what he's really saying here is that he has only ever fallen in love with one woman, and it happens to be the wife of the former king, Gavanius. So this is why he overthrew Gavanius, is because he wanted Gavanius's wife, who happens to be the daughter of Helvetius. So then he turns to Helvetius and he's like, yeah, it's your daughter. And if you're proud of that, that's fine. It's not a sin to be prideful in a case like this. Like, you should be proud of her. This is a great thing. She's a great woman. In a weird way, you're a great man because she kneels to you and you kneel to me. So like, through the transitive property, you deserve a fair amount of respect here. And he's like, you know, there's nothing that anybody has ever been proud of that they weren't happy about first. So if you're going to say that pride is a sin, then joy is a sin, which it isn't. So don't worry about it. It's fine if you're proud of the fact that I have the hots for your daughter. And then he sends Memphonius and Sophoronius off to get the daughter, who in this play is just known as Lady. He sends them off to get her, and he's like, go get her and attend on her as if she's a queen. If you happen to treat her better than you would treat a queen, that's fine too, because you serve me and now I'm going to be serving her because I want to woo her and that whole bit. So run along and get her. So Memphonius goes off to get her, and Sophoronius, before he leaves to get her, is going to have some thoughts on this situation of the tyrant usurper king wanting to marry the queen of the recently overthrown king. Because no, none of that's confusing. But anyway, come on back tomorrow and we will find out what Sophoronius has to say. I will see you then. Mwah.